Deep Space D-6. This is a Star Trek-based game that has been released as a free print-and-play game. That is, you can go on Board Game Geek and find the files and print out all of the materials that you need to assemble your copy of the game, and it's also a very light copy to build. Frankly, if a print-and-play game requires me to spend too much time assembling cards and building components, I may just as well buy a game instead, or ask for or buy a professionally made copy from the print and play. I like print and play games that I can print out and in 15 minutes I have ready them to go. This is one such game, because all that you need to do is to print the files, which also will not consume much ink in your printer, because the files only include a board for the game, 2 sheets of instructions, and then 3 sheets of cards, 3 sheets that then you cut and you make into event cards, or more specifically threat cards that you use in the game. Also, one of the sheets containing the threat cards does not only contain cards, only contains this little player aid here. These cards, probably some of you will want to glue on cardboard before you cut them, so they're thicker, they look more like cards. Maybe you will also want to cut the round corners round. As you can see, I have very little time, patience, and skill for building elegant copies of print-and-play games. I want to play the darn game. So I didn't spend much time doing many or any of those things that I just mentioned to beautify the game. I didn't even mount the cards, because I realized that even if you just use them like this, you cut them from the sheet and you don't mount them on anything, you can still play the game. In the game, you are the captain of a starship going around the universe and trying to survive all sort of external and internal threats. External threats from enemy ships pounding your shields, to internal threats that may include stuff like a robot uprising, your medical team is suffering an existential crisis, some really interesting stuff in the threats that will occur here. So, you have your ship here, which has 2 important tracks. One is shields and one is hull points. You will place 2 cubes here, and usually when you take damage from external sources, they reduce the shields first and the hull next, with the exception of some enemies that are able to bypass the shields altogether. And when your hull points go down to 0, you lose the game. Here we have an area for the Infirmary, where you place dice representing crew that was wounded, and here we have various sections of the ship where you will place your dice. And these are scanners for the threats. We'll talk about those later. You need 6 dice of a type and then a die that looks somewhat different. So the 6 dice represent your crew, and the different die is the threats die. Now, at the beginning of each turn, you roll all of the available crew dice. Some of your crew dice may have been locked into various negative circumstances, locked in scanners, locked here. But suppose that you have all of your dice, then you roll them, and then you assign them to different places on the ship, depending on what they mean. Now here, the game uses these nice icons here to represent the functions of the dice, so unless you make a custom dice with those symbols, which would be pretty cool, you need the dice converter that tells you what each symbol corresponds to in terms of pips. And I thought this would be pretty annoying to have to look at this many times. In truth, here, the board is very rationally organized, because soon enough that you play the game, you realize that the 6s go here. So actually, as soon as you roll the dice, all 6s that represent scan positions, you put the 6s there as soon as you roll them. And then the other dice are assigned logically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the positions of the various icons on the board is organized in increasing order. So that's pretty neat. 2, 3, 4, and 4. Now, for the sake of this example, let's say that actually this had been my roll. 1 die per type, 1 die per number. What are the odds? You roll the dice and you assign them to your board. As I said, 6s immediately go there. Then after you roll the die and you assign them, you scan for threats. That means if you have 3 dice in there, you immediately draw a threat card, but on the plus side, then all of the dice that were there are freed, so you can use them later, otherwise they are stuck in there. Threat cards, well, we'll talk about those in a second. Now, you know what, actually let's talk about them right now. When you draw a threat card, it can be one of 2 types. It can have a triangular icon here, in which case it's an external threat that is attacking you from the outside. You see the number there, it indicates the number of health points. It's called health, or sometimes it's a little peculiar because it really refers to hull points of enemy ships. You see here there is a track on numbers 1 to 4. When you draw a card that has a triangular icon, you put it in the slot corresponding to that number. So that those raiders enter the fight at 2 health points, this bomber at 2, the mercenary ship at 3, and so on and so forth. Some other threats have a square icon. Those are internal threats, so they're inside your ship and you place them here. It can be anywhere because they do not have health points the way external threats do. And we're going a little bit around the deck, so you also get a sense of other things that you may have. For example, this would be an internal threat, and so on and so forth. So you will have threats all around the board, and now, however, it's time to see what you can do about those threats. So you roll the dice, as I said, you check for scans, then you use your dice to activate effects. One dice are commanders. They can be used to change a crew die to any phase or to reroll any available crew. A commander can change another commander. So you have some flexibility there, and in some cases this is the main decision that you will make in a turn. In other cases there are some of these dice that allow you to do multiple things, so you decide what you want to do with them. 2 are tactical dice that allow you to fire weapons against external threats, those guys there. The first die that you have there and that you use for this effect inflicts a damage on the opponents, and plus you have a +2 for each other die. So these 2 dice together assigned to a tactical station gives me 3 points of damage. I could direct them all against that enemy and destroy it, or I can also split them among multiple enemies if that is the case. When you hit an enemy, you simply move them down that scale to record the number of points that they lost and therefore the number of health points that they have left. Here we have the medical dice that allow you to return all units from the infirmary to play, so you will be able to use them later, or you can also free a die from the scanner position using a medic. Why is that the case? No idea. No idea what the thematic connection would be. Here we have science. You can recharge your shields in case your value was below the maximum. A single die here allows you to recharge them to their maximum, or you can use the stasis beam. With the stasis beam, it allows you to block the opponent. The opponent will not activate the storm, because after you are done with all your things, the threat cards will activate and do bad stuff to you. Finally, we have the engineers that allow you to repair hulls, and the number of points that you recover is 1 for the first die that you use in that station, +2 for each additional die, each additional icon used there. And you can use dice also to assign them to cards that you're trying to resolve. So for example, if I put a card there, then I resolve this card and I do not have to suffer that effect. Now, after you're done with your dice performing your actions, the threats wake up. First, you draw a new threat card and you add it wherever it applies. Maybe you're lucky, you got a nothing happens, don't panic card. Most likely you'll get a new threat, you place it around the board wherever it applies. Suppose that this is my situation right now. After you added a new threat, you roll the threat die. and you check all of the threats that are in play and active, and all the threats that show that number, the number you just rolled on the threat die, will activate and resolve the corresponding effect. For example, this one has been blocked by the stasis beam. This one actually is still active. I rolled a 3, and so I lose 2 points of hull. If I have shields, the shields will absorb that first. The raiders are also attacking me, they're also pestering me, but there is no 3 on them, so I'm good. The time warp also doesn't activate because of the 3. And this is how the game works. Then I gather up my dice, and I repeat. And again, after I roll dice, assign dice to scanners, check if you get a threat early in the turn, perform actions with your dice, draw a card, activate the threats you're using the threat die, and continue like this until either you have been able to eliminate all of the threats in the deck, in which case you win the game, or your hull points go down to 0 and you lose the game. You also go down to 0 if all of your dice are trapped, for example, victims, wounds, and unhealed wounds in the infirmary, trapped in the scanners. Anytime that there is a situation where all of your dice are trapped, you cannot roll dice at the beginning of your turn, then you also lose the game. This is Deep Space D-6. Super simple, super intuitive, but quite fun. It reminds me a lot of a game that I played recently, which also is a solitaire print-and-play game with a Star Trek theme based on dice, and it is Star Trek, the Adventure dice game, I'll place a link to my review for that game under this review. It's a game that I played recently, and I like that one too, and I also like this one. I may like this one a little bit better. The other Star Trek the Dice game is a little deeper, but also requires more effort to build, and is more convoluted. It has more steps. I think that this game here is much more linear, and it achieves pretty much the same thing that the other one does, with fewer steps, with less effort, with a more linear and intuitive engine. At the core, they both have the same idea that you roll dice. Some dice may be trapped in your scanners, and then you can assign dice, and some dice are command dice that allow you to alter the result of other dice, and then you use your dice to perform various things. And they all have the idea of enemy actions coming from cards that will affect your situation. The biggest difference here, however, is that you have a very simple and linear way of handling actions. I like how you can zap enemies this way and reduce their strength. It just feels like the game moves faster. You have fewer things to take into account. Yes, the other game also has upgrades, so you can gain resources that give you more tactical depth. But at the core, both of these dice games are revolving. They will revolve around a very small core of decisions around based on the dice that you roll and how you want to assign them and the actions you want to perform. That other game adds a little more effects, which is good, but that also comes with an increase of complexity, not to the point in Star Trek the Dice game that the experience becomes fiddly by any means, but there is more meat to chew and to digest. This is a game that is very linear, very simple, but I think it still achieves what it intends to, which is to give you a simple, fun, engaging game experience with a narrative element. There really is a narrative element here. There really is fun in seeing the theme coming to life through all of the game effects. Yes, it is about assigning a 5 or changing out 2 into a 3 and move a 1 here. It is numerical, but yet there is enough theme that comes out of these cards to make things fun. It reminds me of some good episodes of the old Star Trek TV show when all hell breaks loose. There's just a lot of bad stuff. Classic episodes like The Naked Time. And here you have similar situations when you have, again, the robots attacking the people, the panels exploding. Meanwhile, the Romulans, they're not called the Romulans in this game, probably for copyright reasons, but You have the Romulan type enemies pounding at your shields, following you. The raiders sneak past you or sneak so close to you they manage to ignore the shields, or maybe they get so close or inside the shields or whatever. They have strange technologies. Boarding parties that immediately send people to the infirmaries, and a lot of different things that happen. So to me, really part of the joy of the game is seeing the theme come to life through such simple, elegant mechanics. The game is simple, but it's fun. It's really fun. It is a series of interesting choices. Not many, but the ones that you have mattered, the ones that you have result in interesting narrative situations, in tough decisions about the location of a very small pool of resources, even smaller if some of your dice start getting locked in various places. So it feels nice, it feels tense, it creates a nice sense of tension. Definitely, when people say you get what you pay for, they haven't played this game, or they haven't played so many other free print and play games out there. This is a simple solitaire game. You can print it tonight and you'll be playing it 10 minutes after you print it, and I think you'll have fun. It costs nothing, it costs very little effort and time to put it together, and then you have a game that is very fun and simple to play. For what it is a big winner. Fun and enjoyable. Fans of Star Trek, I believe, will enjoy it, but simply players that enjoy a simple, nice, engaging solitaire game will enjoy it too. Deep Space D-6 definitely gets a high recommendation for me. When I review free games, it's not a matter of like, I hope that now you know whether this is a game for you to purchase, to invest your hard-earned money. That's not the point. The point of these videos for me is to put on your radar games that maybe you wouldn't have known about otherwise, that you hadn't heard of. Deep Space D6, I hope I put it on your radar, and I hope you'll give it a try. I hope you'll take the time to print a copy and try it, because really, it is a fun game. Travel game, bring it with you when you go camping, when you go traveling. A lot of different uses that you can have for this game, I believe, and it costs nothing, and it really doesn't take long to build. Deep Space D6, 2 big thumbs up from me.